just to continue, so is this argument about Apple Computer a good argument? Well, oftentimes, we look at conclusions and they go too far. That to say that Apple is fooling its customers is probably an exaggeration. Just like saying that its products are ridiculously overpriced. I mean, they may be overpriced, but are they ridiculously overpriced? Some people would say yes, but it's not obviously true. Has the argument established that it's actually fooling its customers? No. It may be disappointing its customers. Its products may be overrated, but there's no real proof here that it's fooling its customers. So maybe if the conclusion had been put in a more moderate way, it would be a better argument. But as it stands, although it might make us think, or it might make some kind of point that is worth pursuing, the argument is probably a failure. It's not really. Its premises are questionable, and it doesn't seem that even if they were true, that they would support such a strong statement as fooling its customers. So I don't think its reasoning is really valid either. Let's take a look at the last argument here. Most people agree that the outlawing of alcohol in America during Prohibition was a mistake, but few are aware that the incidence of alcoholism in America rose dramatically in the years after Prohibition ended and alcohol again became legal and freely available. This provides good reason to oppose the drug legalization movement's efforts to legalize marijuana. If marijuana is made legal, then we can expect similar problems to result. Well, interesting, I guess. Let's see. Most people agree that the outlawing of alcohol in America during Prohibition was a mistake. It seems like that's, a premise. Plausible. Few are aware that the incidence of alcoholism actually rose dramatically in the years after Prohibition ended. Seems to be another premise. And that is used. Obviously, we have a inference indicator here. The conclusion indicator to the conclusion that we should oppose the efforts to legalize marijuana. If marijuana is made legal, then we can expect similar problems to result. I think it's fairly clear that the main point of the argument is here that we should oppose efforts to legalize marijuana. The reasons given, an analogy is made between what purportedly happened after alcohol was made legal again and what will happen if marijuana is made legal. That seems to be the main support for this claim that we should oppose the legalization of marijuana. So that is our conclusion to the argument that we should oppose that legalization. Let's look at the support. This runs contrary to the thrust of the argument. It's interesting as background, but this claim here really doesn't figure into the reasoning. It's not really a premise that supports a conclusion, so we can ignore it. The key premise here seems to be that alcoholism rose dramatically after Prohibition ended. I have no idea whether that's true. I actually wrote this argument and I completely made it up. So I know that I don't know whether it's true because I just went ahead and said it. If it were true, that would be really interesting. But it's not obviously true. I would really need to see some proof of that before I accepted that premise as likely to be true. this claim here that if marijuana is made legal, then we'd expect similar problems to result. Well, it's not even clear what that means, similar problems. I mean, alcoholism is addiction to alcohol. What would be the similar problems with marijuana? I guess addiction to marijuana, but is marijuana even addictive? I don't even know. Um, so really, the truth of that is, I would say, very questionable. Um, Marijuana is a drug and alcohol is a drug, but not all drugs are the same or have the same effects. And it's not clear that if we legalize marijuana, that even the usage of marijuana would go up very significantly. And plenty of people seem to use it now in places that it's illegal. I guess I would want to know about, say, statistics from places like Colorado and Washington State, where it's recently been made legal recreationally. So I would, I think that these premises are very, very questionable. Um, so, on the basis of the truth of premises, this argument already fails. Is not a good argument. Even if the premises were true, would they be a good reason to believe that the conclusion is true? Does the conclusion actually follow from the premises? That is, if it's true that similar problems to a rise in alcoholism would result if we were to make marijuana legal, would that be a good reason to oppose it? Well, it would be a reason. I mean, alcoholism is a very bad thing, and it destroys people's lives and destroys families and does all sorts of damage to communities. If legalizing marijuana were to, cause more driving type things and the violence that occurs from alcohol abuse and medical and social and all sorts of problems, then that would probably be a good reason to oppose it. But so I would say that on the basis of validity, the reasoning is, that is given. If we stipulate the truth of the premises, argument's not that bad. It would seem that the conclusion is supported to some extent. So is it a good argument? In my opinion, no. None of these arguments are good. I put them up here. I made them with the intent of making them poor arguments. Are they absolutely terrible? Well, maybe the Philadelphia one is terrible. All of them could be improved. It could be that Philadelphia is the worst city in America, but you really need to give a lot more proof. It may be that Apple really takes advantage of its customers, but I would need more proof. It may be that legalizing marijuana is a bad idea, but I would definitely need a better argument than is given here. Again, this last argument, the reasoning is not so bad. It's the truth of the premises that seem to be highly questionable. So not all arguments are good. Some of them stink, and these are some pretty bad arguments. Again, when we evaluate the soundness of an argument, we're evaluating the soundness of an argument. We're not giving a final judgment on the truth of the conclusion. The conclusion to each of these arguments could very well be true, despite the fact that it goes unproven in the argument itself. We're sort of weighing in on the strength of the argument, and these are three pretty weak arguments.